Hey there berries, welcome to patch 11.13. I'm going to try and keep this tier list as quick as possible. I've got a very busy schedule today outside of this. I'm part of Twitch Rivals. If you're watching this live, you've probably missed day one already. Day 2 and day 3 are on Wednesday and Thursday if you wanted to tune into that. UK versus other EU countries for Valorant, League of Legends and TFT. So I've been pretty busy and involved in that. So I'm going to do my best to give you as accurate representation of what I think you should be playing as a support and what's happening this patch. So yeah, let's just get into it, yeah? So this patch is a big one. If you remember last patch, absolutely no changes to support. This one is a patch directly, aiming for that kind of like mid lane buff with AP items. But as a consequence, that is going to affect AP supports, and also Moonstone is getting buffed as well this patch. Also, they're reducing the movement speed of a lot of champions via the items. As you can probably see on the left hand side, there are lots of movement speed nerfs on the mobility creep reduction. So what we'll start off is we'll talk about the item changes in terms of the buffs. So there are 2 new items, we'll talk about that at the end. Ludens, Leandries, Everfrost, gold cost reduction, 200 gold. Huge for Brand, Xerath, Zyra, those type of champions. Moonstone also getting a minor buff. So pretty much every caster has been buffed in terms of support, at least by a minor amount. 200 gold might not seem like a lot, but it will make a difference in terms of completing those items. I believe it is the endgame recipe cost reduction. So when you have, like, for example, the Lost Chapter combined with like the Blasting Wand, the gold cost to combine those items together to make the completed item, that is the part where they're reducing the gold. So I believe at the moment, correct me if I'm wrong, it's like 1150 for a combine for a Ludens, but now it should go down to something like 950, something like that. So pretty big change, good buff for supports. And really, if you are an enchanter / mage advocate, which honestly, if you are in gold minus, you probably are, you're going to get buffed here unless you like taking Shrillias. So if you're like a Moonstone advocate or an AP mage advocate, then you're basically got 3 buffs. If you like the Shrillias, it did get nerfed, but the nerfs aren't as dramatic as people may think they are. So what happens at the moment with Shrillias is that you pop the item, everyone around you gets 60% movement speed, but that decays extremely quickly to the flat 30%. Now everyone is just going to be getting, on the new item, there's no 60%, it's just flat 30 across the board. But overall, the amount of movement speed that you're losing isn't like too dramatic, and you've still got the movement speed when you empower an allied champion, so that hasn't changed. In terms of support, I don't believe there's anything else there. That is a nerf. No one really took Nimbus Cloak. Maybe like Rakan potentially did in a couple of situations. Dead Man's Plate nerfed as well. No one really took that anyway. I mean, maybe I don't know on the Bard builds lately, but I don't believe anyone was taking the Dead Man's Plate. So yeah, those are the item changes. There's one kind of interesting support rune change, which is the Ghost Pourer rune, which has been buffed. I think if you are playing a roaming support and you're taking an Oracles early, you could maybe see some potential benefit from that. Some people like going Oracles very, very early into the game, even before the support item is completed. So something like that, running a Ghost Pourer rune might potentially be possible. And something like Pyke, for example, could, very easily run Ghost Pourer if he's going to go Umbral Glaive and clear out those wards. So just something to kind of think about a little bit if you are going Domination and you are taking those secondary runes. So that's the overall. So overall, everyone's going to be slower. And if mages are getting buffed as well in terms of items, it's like a double buff really for mages and enchanters, because they're slow to move around anyway. If everyone else is slower, you're going to have an easier time landing skill shots, you're going to have an easier time not getting caught, etc. So yeah, good patch for supports overall. And honestly, they haven't really nerfed tank supports that much, so tank supports aren't really missing that much here either. Moving on to champion buffs and nerfs. As you can see here, there is nothing here in terms of champion nerfs and champion buffs in terms of support, apart from potentially the Tahm Kench. Now, I'm not going to comment on Tahm Kench as of yet. He should be going live with his rework. I'm going to need time to play on it. And it's going to take me a while because I'm still on Twitch Rivals until Thursday, so I'm probably not going to get to play the new Tahm Kench until like Friday at the earliest. It looks interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up getting played more in terms of like the solo lane. We'll have to wait and see. I think he probably is still listed under this tier list, just kind of ignore it. It's to be continued. I'll try and get like a video up as quickly as possible and let you guys know my actual thoughts and opinions on it. But until then, just be wary of the pick. And as I said, it might end up being played in the top lane more than support when it first comes out. So we'll just have to wait and see, but I am excited about the changes. So here's the new item number 1. This is more of a support item, so I'm not exactly sure when this item is going to be good. It's really weird. It's 2,500 gold. The stats aren't exactly the most appealing in terms of 650 flat HP and the ability haste. The ability haste is kind of common anyway on support items of this gold cost. The flat HP is moving it in the direction of a tank. I did read a Reddit post on this item, so I'll just explain how the active works first. So if you're familiar with like Kindred, you choose a target who you want to put this enemy target that you want to put this item on. It takes 60 seconds, I believe, to fully stack up. And it has a 90-second cooldown, so you can't just keep flicking, between enemy champions. You take a lot less damage from the target that you are focused with this item, and also you apply reduced tenacity while them. So that would affect your allies as well. So if you have like a lot of crowd control on your team, and there is one person stand out like there's a carry, then you can like effectively screw them over really hard. I think this item was introduced because stuff like Seraphine support was played mid, and they basically had like one hyper carry kind of thing focused on the enemy team. So like if there's only like one carry on the enemy team, then this item is like really OP, because the person that you're targeting is the only one that's really doing damage on their team, plus they're taking 20% longer crowd control. So stuff like scenarios like that where there's like only one, maybe two people potentially standing out on their team, this item will have more of a benefit. So back onto the Reddit thread, I remember reading a Reddit thread, like if you had like 150-60 ability haste and you maxed your Q and you had this item targeted on someone, you could perma bind a target and they wouldn't be able to move at all. Now, realistically, that's not going to happen into a game, but it is interesting that the 20% reduced tenacity, what kind of champions is that going to affect in terms of like increasing the crowd control? So I could see like there's so many different possibilities with like tanks. Like Leona could easily pick this up and just like perma lockdown someone. Just like literally almost any of the tanks, like Nautilus, his route would be extended on the passive. I'm not sure how it would work necessarily with the hook, but like the Leona is probably the clear one here. I don't think I would want to pick this up on something like a Zyra. Yeah, you'd be like reducing their tenacity a little bit, increasing utility, but you wouldn't have the extra damage and things like that as well. It's like the more crowd control that you provide as a tank or whatever with this item, the better it is. Just factor in that you don't have actually like any magic resist or armor. with this item. So you'd probably pick this one up second as a support, get your locket in probably into the anathemes chains, I think it's called. Anathemes. So correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, I'm sure I butchered that. But yeah, so tank supports, kind of keep this item in mind if there's only 1 or 2 carries. The other item that you should probably be aware of, none of the supports will probably be taking this item. It's Hole Breaker. It's a split pushing item. From what I've seen of the item, basically it's designed as split pushing. So if say you send your Shen bot side, he then buffs up his minions when he's by himself, and he just pushes in the turret by himself, forcing someone to have to answer it. It kind of reminds me, if you guys remember and were around for it, the Banner of Command, where you buffed up a cannon minion and let it do its own thing. This is similar to that, but you have to be there rather than just buffing up the cannon minion and then just going off to do your own thing. So this is like an answer to... I don't know why they introduced this item in the game. I hate it personally, but we'll have to see how it is in game. But it's another one of those things where if you're a solo player and you only care about yourself, you probably end up picking up this item because that you're that kind of person. So it's catering to the Yasuo Yone split pushes. I'm 1v9 montage plays kind of people. So yeah, we'll just have to wait and see what really comes out of that. So, well, we're going to be looking at the tier list. So, given all the facts, AP supports are now stronger, enchanters are stronger. In some cases, tank supports are stronger. The only main thing is that the Shreddie has kind of got nerfed a bit, but overall, this is a good patch for supports. So, you got the general kind of tier 5 garbage stuff at the bottom there. What we'll do is this tier list is designed for people that are gold and below, and at the very end, if you are somehow plus, then I do have a special little category for you. So tier 5, you got random ones. Ignore the Tom Kench. I don't know where to put him right now. I'll make a video on Friday about him. But the rest, you have the kind of usual suspects at the moment. You got once again, you've got things like Bard and Thresh that I think, in my opinion, don't do very well in gold and minus, just because people just don't know how to play with those champions on your team. Yeah, literally nothing else to add there. They're all very, similar. You can always just pause the video, have a look at the icons, and just kind of have a look. But I really want to dive in and talk into the tier 3 plus. Because that's where the real meat of the tier list comes into. So nothing really changed there. I did move Lux up a tier, spoiler, into tier 2 just because she got buffed with the Illudens option with the gold cost, and also because people are slower, it means that her skill shots can have a better chance of landing. Now, there isn't really anyone here that necessarily benefits from any of the item changes apart from maybe Sona. The tank's tenacity reduction item doesn't really apply to too many here. You can maybe argue Brom. That's kind of about it. I know I used the Morgana analogy, but you probably wouldn't want to pick up that on Morgana because you would need a Zhonya's quite early on, and then you probably would want your mythic rather than buying an item that's not mythic. So Sona is probably the only one there that could potentially get into tier 2 because of the item changes and how everyone else is slower, so she won't be caught off as much. So in a tier 2.5, if I had one, Sona would be there by herself. But no one else is really here is benefiting too much. You could argue the Nico, but I think Nico overall is very lucky to be tier 3 anyway, so it makes her a better tier 3 candidate. But everything else there, I'm kind of happy with and where they are right now. Tier 2, as we mentioned, we've got the Uwu, and we're adding more to the Uwu tier of the tier 2 with the Lux in as well. And yes, Seraph is Uwu before we get another YouTube comment suggesting that. Yeah, so all of these did get buffed. Naturally, everything in tier 2 is the same but stronger than what they were. So like everything in tier 2 got buffed. So if you play any of these champions, they should be slightly stronger going into this patch. The only reason they're not tier 1 is just because these champions are just too good. You got the Leona with the item I was mentioning as well. I think that's going to be one of the most popular items on her. I could see going Locket into that just because adding 20% tenacity on the amount of things that Leona has, from the root, the stuns on a ridiculously low cooldown to her ulti as well. I think it's going to be kind of like, I think she's going to be quite strong with this item for sure. We'll have to see how it goes, but I'm pretty sure she's going to be really good too. Brand and Zyra just got free, but like the Brand and the Zyra are already so strong in support anyway, particularly in the lower ELOs. Like, them getting another buff is actually hilarious. So get ready basically for some more nerfs potentially in the near future. We'll have to see. But yeah, like they're too good right now. In the Brand and the Zyra are way too good. The new item is interesting on the Leona and Nautilus is just like the easiest tank support to play overall anyway. Easiest way to catch someone out. So yeah, it's kind of the same tier list as before. But you know, if pretty much every single support champion is getting buffed and everyone is just going, no one's really gonna move. It's just that everyone is just stronger as a support. So overall, it's a good patch for support, but there isn't actually that many changes to the individual points, as apart from like the Lux and the Zone that we were talking about a little bit earlier. And the same kind of translates because of that into the Plat Plus tier. You know, as I said before, you've got the Zyra. Brand does fall off still in the high ELOs, but the Zyra is still a really good option. You've got the things now like opening up, like the Yumi and the Lulu. You could always do a Moonstone Lulu if you wanted to, but I think Shrillia's is probably still going to be ever so slightly better. And then on the Thresh as well, you could maybe potentially look at that new item on Thresh. I probably wouldn't personally bother. I think it's kind of limiting in a way in terms of like how much crowd control. You would probably need like 2 good hard like crowd controls for it to make it work properly, like the Leona for example. But I think Thresh is still going to be really good in the high ELOs. And Bard's an interesting one with the new item. I don't know how the stasis ult would affect someone with tenacity reduction. I don't think it would make any difference whatsoever. But I think overall, if you're super high ELO, particularly if you're like Diamond 1 Master Plus, something like that, the Bard is generally always going to work for you. There's plenty of Bard players up there still that have the 55% plus win rate. So yeah, you got like the usual suspects overall, but it's just an overall buffer support. So if you've been like putting off some ranked games, you've been feeling sad about support, and you mainly play enchanters and mages, the next 2 weeks honestly is the best time to play a league and get some ranking up. If you can make the time and effort for that, you'll probably do decently. Right? Don't sue me if you lose your games, but you will probably do decently. But I hope you guys enjoyed the tier list. Yeah, that's about it really. Just a good support patch. I will be doing Twitch Rivals on stream this week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So if you can pop on and say hi, you're more than welcome to. I'll greet you as best as I can. The streams will have a 3-minute delay as per the rules, unfortunately, but I'm sure Twitch chat will accommodate you nicely. And yeah, see you in 2 weeks for another tier list. Take care, guys, and stay very awesome.